Three, two, one, let's go. Hey guys, it's Todd with Project 9. Welcome to Personal Development Hacks. We help people get off of the autopilot in their lives, start doing what truly inspires them, and living their best life. This episode, we've got another really good one for you guys. We've got a special guest. Her name is Stacey Short, and I will bring her in now. Hi, Stacey.
Hey, Todd. I absolutely love how you say you help people get off autopilot because that's where I spent a ton of my life. And now that's what I personally help women do and not a lot of people know about that. Like that's just the general around Joe Schmo off the street. Don't know that they're in autopilot or Sally Jane, right? And
Yeah,
I didn't for years. I didn't realize that I was on autopilot. I didn't realize that it was in survival mode. I didn't realize I was actually hurting myself physically by not being in the present moment. And
right.
so, yeah, through many, many, many struggles, which I'm sure we'll talk about today, I became a transformational self love coach 3 years ago. And basically, I became the coach that I could have used 10, 15 years ago when I was just in the thick of it. And now I help women middle aged that are in some sort of caretaking role, wife, mother, daughter, aging parents, fragilely, medically fragile child, maybe their partner needs some extra support. And I help them set boundaries, say no and mean it. Don't feel guilty about saying no. Stop that negative self-talk, which I was the pro at that one. Um, like aces for me, and rediscover who they are without all those labels. I didn't know who I was. If you had taken wife, mother, daughter, sister, employee, friend away from me, I would have been
Right.
very lost. And surprisingly, even with those labels, I still felt very lost in my life. So now I help women like come through that with easier than I did it kind of unguided for many, many years.
Yeah, and it's a key thing because I think a lot of people, like to your point, there's a large portion of society, I mean, that is on autopilot, and a very small percentage of those realize it, and then an even smaller percentage of those like do something to change it, be it through coaching, reaching out to you or I, or just getting someone else to like have a different perspective and basically call them out and say, yeah, dude, you're on autopilot. Because I've talked to plenty of clients that I've had that, they might be 12 years into a career that a decade ago they kind of entered into that autopilot mode of, I show up every day, I do the same type of stuff. It's not my passion. I do it because I've got family, I've got, responsibilities. And no one's sitting here saying you need to quit your job tomorrow,
No.
but there's a lot of different stuff in life that you can make progress towards and keep your job and keep that responsibility, and you're still being, you're still paying for stuff and everything like that. But there's other things in your life. Don't let what you do define who you are, basically. So,
Yeah.
um, and then as far as the saying no thing, I mean, I always use Warren Buffett. He says for every 100 deals that cross his desk, he says no like 99 times. And the one that he is intrigued by, he still might say no. It's you have to get comfortable doing it. Otherwise, you're shiny object syndrome, right? Like
Oh,
everything
sure.
looks good and you're just chasing all this stuff, but you're actually not making any progress. You're just chasing what's new, what's next, who sounded better, whatever. Um, and it can damage you personally and your relationships.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So for me, my take's a little pivoted on that shiny object syndrome and that not saying no. The women I work with were brought up as people pleasers. That's just kind of most women. You know, we still live in a patriarchal society, and so women are taught to be softer and accommodating and submissive. And so saying no, it's not allowed, or we're bad women, or we're not living up to expectations. And so there's a lot of guilt and shame that comes with that. And so it's almost less uncomfortable for us to overextend ourselves in service than it is to say no in service of self.
Hmm.
And that's such a hard concept for men and women and thems and theys. Um, but but for women especially, it's implied from birth in our upbringing of
Right.
how to be a lady, or you know, don't women don't curse, or gosh, I remember my mom. So I found out a few months ago I'm neurodivergent, I'm ADHD. Surprise. Uh, and one of the things neurodivergents do is don't sit in chairs properly. It's uncomfortable for us. So I thought back to like my younger years, my teenage years, and I always had a leg thrown over like an arm of the chair, or I would like sit sideways and have my legs thrown over the arm one way and then my head over the other one. And my mom would always, Stacey Lee, you're not sitting like a lady. And just immediate shame, immediate guilt. And just in something so simple as how I was sitting in a chair. So
Hmm.
you can imagine if you extrapolate that out into like things that actually really matter, how intense that was for me
Oh,
as a young person. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and I think that's, a lot of it is based on just like generational stuff, like your grandparents, they were one way because that's when they grew up, in the 40s and 50s or whatever. And then your
Yep.
parents, it was, they passed those same lessons on. And then, our parents passed it on to us. And it's up to like people like you and I and coaches and people that have broken free from the generational kind of, you need to do this, you need, go to high school, go to college, go to a company, work for 40 years, get a 401k, or do this, or the old
Yeah.
adage, well, if you're going to work hard, play hard. I completely disagree with that. It should be work hard, play always. Like, otherwise
Yeah.
you end up killing yourself, during the week, and then completely just obliterating it on Friday and Saturday nights, and you're right back to the same thing on Monday morning. And so it's up to us to change a lot of those views and those insights that, from your aspect, like women, you absolutely can be strong. You can say no. You can set your boundaries. You can be an individual based on what makes you happy and what makes you. And just breaking out of those cycles that generationally, it's like, you know women do this and men do this. It's like,
Right.
no, I mean, let's get to a point where it's like, no, individuals do what individuals
People
do.
can, yeah. Some
You know,
people do this, some people do that, and it's, you know, unless you're hurting others, it's all okay.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
sure, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, I grew up with boomer parents. I'm Gen X. I know I look young. Kidding. I'm Gen X, and so all of the memes that are out there about Gen X actually apply to me. Like total latchkey kid at 10. I helped raise my brothers. My mom and dad. My dad was military, and my mom was a working mom, and so she was gone at least 40 hours of the work week. And then at one point in time when we lived in DC, she was working on Capitol Hill at a lobbying law firm, and so she was gone 70 hours during the week during my teenage years. And what I remember about that time was we had Domino's pizza every night for weeks on end. And at the time, I didn't know what to do with that information. It seemed to teenage Stacey like neglect. And now adult Stacey have been going through my own autopilot and my own trauma and drama of raising children. Now I get it. Now I get
Hmm.
it. And so I'm able to give my mom a little bit more grace in she was literally hanging on by a thread, like hanging on by a thread. And I hurt for her. I hurt for
Yeah.
her because theoretically, she's exactly the woman that am helping now. You know,
Right.
she's exactly the woman that I'm helping now. And so strange that I'm also helping the woman that I was. And that's just such a great visual of that pattern, of that generational curse. If you're not willing to break it up, if you're not willing to get uncomfortable, if you're not willing to get radically honest about what you're causing, doing, and accepting in your life, you're going to live the same day over and over and over again for 85 years.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the thing, like you bring up a valid point about the uncomfortableness of breaking a cycle or being individual or wanting something that is not necessarily generational in your family. Um, but a couple things, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because you do not grow as a person, as a parent, as a sibling, as a child, as a friend. You don't grow when you're comfortable. You grow when you're uncomfortable, and you figure stuff out as you go through that. And the other thing is, like, like you're saying, you went through it and now you're turning around and teaching it. And like, my company and this podcast and everything is based on my personal journey. And that's the people that you need to, like, just as a everyone, like, that's the person you want to seek out. You don't want to seek out the person that's like, I read a book on this and now I'm going to teach it. It's like, you want someone to help guide you through the steps, that's been there, that's faced those trials, tribulations, challenges, obstacles, figured out a way to get through it. Because, like, you and I, it's just about opening the book that we used and going, here, this is how I got from the not falling off of a cliff to the other side. And you don't have to go through all this drama and all this pain and everything. I'm going to help you get to the other side a lot quicker, a lot
Yeah.
easier. Not saying painless, but
No,
you're,
no, it's
but
painful.
but
Yeah.
you're gonna but that whatever you go through, that pain or that uncomfortableness, is helping you grow and level up your life to get to ultimately where you do want to be. But just in a lot more simplistic way.
Yeah, absolutely. I see my role with my clients is building a bridge across that cavernous hell that I fell into. And the bridge might dip, it might be a little rickety, and there might be some holes in it, but it's still a bridge nonetheless. And I don't want anybody to go through the 15 years of trauma and autopilot and depression and um, gosh, yeah, I had it. I look back on that girl. I look back on Stacey 15 years ago, and I really hurt for her. And it's almost like we're two different people now because I've moved forward so much, and I've been in therapy for 9 years now. I'm very honest about that. I'm very open about it. I think that everybody should be in therapy. Um, and I even have my children in therapy now too with me. And because I think it's important, I would rather them start on their healing journey at 16 and 18 than in their late 30s like I did, for sure. And so they go with me once a week. We talk about hard stuff, and I hope it's making the impact um, that it has for me, even in the slightest.
Yeah, it's and I think you're absolutely right. Like, you need someone that you can trust, that is unbiased. Um, just because, regardless of if it's 15 years ago or if it's 45 years ago, we, there's stuff that happens, like, in those first 7 years of life, that you're not conscious of, but you're subconscious. There's a folder in there that subconscious brings up every once in a while and says, hey, remember this. And it leads to decision making stuff or fears or uncomfortableness and things like that, that, when you get into the right situation with a counselor, which, let's face it, like, I'm not a counselor, I'm a coach. And, the easiest way that I can explain it is a counselor is like the quarterback of a football team. They call the play and then they go run the play with you. A coach stands on the sideline, calls a play, and then expects you to go run it exactly how, just how they said it. Because like you and I, like, I've gone through that trauma, and I'm on the other side and I'm moving forward, and I want to bring people to that side and help them move forward and up as well. But with those counselors, there's a huge benefit because sometimes they can uncover that stuff and take them from a secret file folder that only the subconscious accesses to making it a realization, and you deal with it. And sometimes it's the stupidest stuff, like, Billy tripped me on the soccer field and I was really embarrassed.
Yeah.
And just the impact that it's had on your life because of the impact it had back then. But you're looking at it now at 45 going,
completely different lens.
Yeah. Why does that matter? I don't care.
Yeah. Crazy.
So
how I describe the difference between coaching and therapy is, like, therapy digs around in that folder, right? Therapy gets in there, really digs it out, makes the subconscious conscious, and really has you feel those feelings that you've intellectualized. I'm brilliant at intellectualizing my feelings. Brilliant. I could quote Jung, Freud. I have a degree in psychology, not to my benefit, guys. It's hindered my healing process, for sure. But when it came to feeling feelings, that was really tough for me because it seemed too vulnerable. It seemed to be weak. So that's what therapists do. They help you deal with all of that stuff and help you understand it's not weak, and your motivation through that. Coaches go, yeah, there's this huge folder. We know the secret file exists. Absolutely. What do you want to do about it now? What do you want to do about it now? Like, we could go dig. We're not licensed to dig, where most of us don't have those degrees and that education and mentoring to dig. We could dig unethically, but regardless of what surfaces, there are still habits and behaviors that are attached to that secret folder that you could actually change now.
Yep.
Without that secret folder being empty. Mm-hmm. So, from today forward, what do you want to do? You're an emotional eater? Okay. I get that. So obviously you're numbing something. All right, that's in the secret folder. We recognize the secret folder. But what can we do now to mitigate the damage? So maybe you go through your pantry and you throw out all of the sugared stuff, and then find something that's like a keto or paleo equivalent and bring that in instead. So you're not missing your favorite things, right? And depriving yourself, because that doesn't work, you guys. Deprivation does not work. But you're just choosing differently. And to me, that's what coaching is. You run in your head all day, negative self-talk about how terrible you are. You're a terrible parent. You're failing at your relationships. You're going to get fired at any moment. God, Stacey, why did you do that? That was really dumb to say. Oh man, I'm so fat. Like, constantly. I can help you stop that.
Mm-hmm.
I can help you stop that through minor changes multiple times a day. That's why my coaching business is called A Few Short Minutes Coaching. I have a last name to use it. And it's true. It only takes a few short minutes, multiple times a day, to actually rewire your brain to choose differently.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like the best way to look at it is, counselors will look at your past and help you deal with it, whereas coaches take all the stuff and say, okay, today is Saturday. We're moving forward. We're moving up. Like we'll help you deal with, what roadblocks you're going to face, what challenges you're going to face. I'm not going to look back and say it's because of this. I'm saying this is how we can deal with it, and these are some tips, tricks, hacks, methods, thought processes, mindsets, whatever, that are going to move you forward and continue you to allow you to make progress. Because that's the thing. It's like, people talk about, well, I want to, they have this dream and they want to get there immediately. And it's like, if depending on how big and how bold and how close you are to that, it doesn't happen immediately. My only goal is that you get 1% better every single
Every
day.
day. One step forward. Just one. Just
Yeah,
one.
because
You don't
they
have to
add
take 10.
up.
Just
Yeah.
one.
Yep. Because they add up. I mean, the best way, Brandon Dawson said it. He runs Cardone Capital for Grant, but he's like, if you think about it, 1% better every single day of every year. At the end of 1 year, you're 37 times better than you were when you started. That is significant. And then you do that for 2 years, and all of a sudden it's like
You're over the 50% mark.
You're a completely different person.
That's true.
Than when you started, and the steps and the progress that you were making, you didn't think were that significant. It was just, I went for a walk for the second day, or I figured some stuff out about a side hustle or a cash flow business, or I spoke with my spouse about how we can improve our relationship. That's improvement.
Yeah.
Because ultimately people love to compare themselves to what they see in the outside world, what's on Instagram, what's on Facebook, what their friends are doing. No, the only comparison is to yourself from the day before.
I'd say the only comparison is for you to yourself. Let's go 5 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go 5 minutes ago. So 5 minutes ago, if you're watching this, I just want you to tap in to where your head was 5 minutes ago. What were you thinking? What were you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
What were you saying to yourself about yourself? Now, right now, do you want to change it? Because you can. Or do you want to stay the same? And that's okay too. Something about coaches that I don't think a lot of people know is we're like some of the most non-judgmental people in the world. Now that doesn't mean we're pushovers, and that doesn't mean we're mush. I I tell my clients I kick ass with love. Like that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to kick your ass with love. And so I do it in a way that's nurturing and compassionate and understanding and non-judgmental, but I'm also going to hold you to what you set out to do. I'm going to hold you to the homework that you and I decided in our last session together. And if you don't come to the next session with the homework done, some questions are going to be asked about what about that homework was difficult for you to complete?
Mm-hmm.
And what are you choosing right now in this second? So if yesterday seems too big to be 1% better today, make it an hour, make it 5 minutes, make it 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it is like that. And for those of you that are really going through hell right now, it is only 1 minute at a time, my friends. And I say that because I know that. I know that my story, parts of my story anyway. So I always intended to be a therapist, LMFT, and I graduated with a BA in psychology from the University of Oklahoma in 2002. And in 2005, I was married and I got pregnant with my oldest son. It's this one right here, and it's a little younger picture. He's 18 now, but he was about 3 months of age when I knew something was not going right at all. And to make a very, very, very long story semi-short, there were 2 years of his life that we spent almost every day in some sort of medical facility, whether it was a pediatrician's office, a specialist office, an ER, an urgent care, and they didn't know what was wrong with him. And I was watching him shrink. And as a baby, any moms out there or parents, period, those kids grow fast and they grow out of their onesies quickly, and it's so expensive, and grow out of the diapers, and he wasn't doing that. And I was pleading with his pediatrician to take notice. And I was still living in Oklahoma at the time. And I'll never forget, I walked in there at 9 months of age and I said, I'm watching him die. And she patted me on the hand and said, oh, Stacey, white children of middle class parents under doctor's care don't just die in this day and age. But I was watching him die. And my parental instincts were correct. And she was completely dismissive. And what we found out a couple of weeks later, it took him throwing up out of his eyes in the doctor's office for her to take him seriously. So think about that for a second. First of all, none of us like vomiting. None of us. Like, that's the worst part of being sick for me. So think about the force which you normally vomit with, okay? And then think about the force it takes to like come out of your nose sometimes, which is really, like, that is really bad. He actually threw up out of his tear ducts because all of this is connected, right? So he threw up out of his tear ducts. And that she was like, oh, and I said, yeah, you're going to put us in a children's hospital right now. I don't care where I have to go, Dallas, Kansas City. I don't care. Like, but you're out of your depth and we need help. And she was like, I don't have credentials. I don't have privileges. And I said, I don't give an F. I don't care. And so within an hour, she had called and gotten us in a children's hospital an hour away from my home. And within 4 hours of being there, a pediatric cardiothoracic surgeon came in and said, I think I know what's wrong with him, but if I put him on his table today, my operating table, he will die. I was so right all along. And his heart was not good, not good. And so they feed him, they fed his heart directly through an IV called TPN for 4 days. And it took him 4 days, 24 hours a day to be strong enough to survive a stomach surgery, which in the long haul was not all that was on with him. They put a feeding tube in him and they said, don't worry, he won't go to kindergarten without this. He was 9 months of age. He was 13 years and 364 days old when we got that feeding tube out. He was a day shy of 14. And that caused a whole other issues, right? Occupational therapy, speech therapy, feeding therapy, like tons and tons of interventions. So at 22 months of age, we had another major hospital stay, and his bowels had stopped moving. His intestines had shut down. They were not moving. And then for those that you don't know, you die that way because the waste backs up and then it gets into your system and you die of sepsis. And so we were directed, go to the emergency room, do not pass go. Like, they didn't even want us coming home and packing a bag for him. But I had already had one ready because we had gone so many times. We kind of kept it ready. And that was a 3-week stay that time. And during that time, the attending insinuated that I was actually factitious disorder or Munchausen's by proxy, that I was making this up and making my son sick in order to get sympathy from me. And so they weren't paying attention to him at all. And that was a 3-week stay. And finally, so what we found out then, he had a lung biopsy, his lung collapsed, we were in the PICU. And oh, by the way, I'm 6 months pregnant at this time and working full time as well. And so I remember distinctly my boss's boss even calling me one day because I wasn't at work. My son was in the pediatric ICU. His lung had collapsed. And my boss's boss said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm in the PICU with my son." And he was like, "Well, can't you come into work?" And I was like, "No, I don't think I can." And he was like, "Well, we need you too." And I understand your kid's sick. Like I hate it when my daughters are sick too, but he'll be okay on the hospital by himself for a little bit. We need you as well. Like totally did not care. So you guys can imagine the amount of stress that we were under. Um, Being dismissed by the medical community, then told that we were right, but that he's possibility of dying, then still not understanding what was going on with him those 2 years. A lot of testing because he still wasn't okay. Being accused of Munchausen's, there was somebody in my room 24/7. If I was sleeping, somebody was there. If I was eating, somebody was there. If I was showering, somebody was there. If I was using the toilet, somebody was there. I was not allowed to touch my kid without it being documented because they were so focused on thinking I was the one doing it. Turns out he had Pseudomonas pneumonia and C. diff. And Pseudomonas, for those that don't know, that's a pneumonia that only like HIV and COPD cancer patients get. But it still took us another month to figure out actually that he was born without an immune system. And then the real fun started because now we spent years trying to get him stable, there was a time that he had 14 medical specialists in a month, medical appointments. There were like 6 a week easily, sometimes 4 a day. And I was working still full time. And then in June of 2007, I had my second son. And so I also had a baby. And my husband was the one employed because he had the better health insurance. And so he could not miss work. And so I had to pivot back into something where people didn't miss me as much. And I had to give up on my dreams of becoming an LMFT because my son needed me more than I could justify, doing anything else. And so I really, really, really lost myself in that caretaking role. And if you had asked me at that time who I was, I would have said, I'm the one that keeps him alive. I'm his mother. That would be the first thing that I would ever tell you about myself. Not that I'm a loving, compassionate person, that I'm funny, that I love music and animals and books. I'm his mother. And it's my
Right.
role to keep him alive. And I know I'm not the only one out there. I know that moms and dads, even with, normal children, still lose themselves in those roles. And a lot of resentment would build up because it looked like to me that and it was true. I was taking care of everybody, my sons, my ex-husband, you know, work people, whatever, but nobody was reciprocating to me. But I also didn't have it at the end of the day to take care of me. And so I built up a lot of resentment, and some of that caused the end of my marriage because of that too, because I was doing all the things and felt so abandoned by my spouse. And I'm not trying to bash him at all. He did the best he could with what he had to work with, but it just wasn't enough. Just wasn't enough.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, obviously, both your sons are, you know, doing well, and I know your oldest, he still has his appointments, and stuff
Forever.
like it's unfortunately it's going to be a life journey for
It
him.
is. It is.
But at the same time, he's where he is because of your support, and you're trusting your gut feeling that something is not right, and getting doctors to actually listen to you. But at the same time, you're also right. Like, there are a ton of other people that they identify themselves and their worth as the parents of these kids.
Yep.
I've got two myself, and I got one in college, one's a junior, and thankfully, like I not that I've disassociated myself, but I don't identify myself through their success. Like that's their success. They put in the work. They did they got the whatever talent skills that are, and they're
They chose
chasing
to
their own.
use it. They chose to implement it. They chose to use it. That is their win. Absolutely. Good for
Yeah.
you.
And so, but you're right. There's so many people that are going through it that, as individuals, especially like, like you said, like you deal a lot with like mothers and women, like you have to have your own identity separate from your kids or your husband or, what you're
Your
just what,
job,
yeah.
whatever
It's
you're
like,
using to define you, that's not you.
yeah, you have to have your own what your best life looks like, and it's completely separate from everything else. It's your best life because at some point, your kids and jobs and stuff like that, like your kids move out and they start living their own lives, and it's not like you get to get a little bit of a vacation and then they have a baby and it's like now I identify as a grandparent. No, it's like you've got to have your own thoughts and dreams of what you want your best life to be, and that's what you should be pursuing completely separate from being a parent, being a spouse, anything like that. Um, because otherwise, what are we doing? Like you're showing your kids, and think of the example that you're setting for the kids. It's like
My
you're
mom
teaching
said a
you're
couple months
teaching
ago,
them.
yeah, to do the same thing. My mom said a couple months ago, and it's just so freaking telling of the pattern. She was like, I said something about, your purpose or something like that. And she was like, my purpose is my family. And I was like, absolutely the F not. And she was like, no, I'm here to serve my family. And I was like, bro, no wonder, no wonder I'm the way I am or was the way I was, because that to this day, this was just a few months ago, that that was her answer of how she's living her life. And yeah, so if I turned around and demonstrated that for my kids, which I did in their 0 to 7 years, so I did. They're people pleasers now too, and that's another reason we've got them in therapy. Um, you're just perpetuating that cycle. So I've got a great question for your listeners to kind of illustrate whether or not you're defining yourself by your roles or by who you are. Okay. And this is from my therapist. Thank God I've been in therapy, like I said, 9 years in 2014, and thankful for that because in 2016, my brother committed suicide, my baby brother. And so if I hadn't been actively in therapy, I don't know that I would be talking to you today. So for any of you guys going through it right now, I see you. I told you when I started talking today that I know this trauma. I know this drama, and there is a way out, and I promise you there is. Excuse my, I still get choked up. It still hurts.
Yeah.
Seven
No, of
seven
course.
years later, it still hurts. Okay, so my therapist actually asked me this a couple of months into therapy. She said, if I put you on an island tomorrow, like everybody's fine, everybody's taken care of, but you're on an island by yourself, who are you? I could not answer that question. It took me months. It took me months of weekly therapy visits talking about that question in order for me to go, oh crap, I am a lover of music and books and animals. I am funny and compassionate and empathetic. I am a thinker. I am intelligent. I am a lover of travel. I am an extrovert. Nothing to do with attachment to anybody else. And that
Mhm.
took me months. So if you can't answer that question right now, I implore you for your own benefit, let alone if you're raising any children, to go find that answer. And usually it takes some sort of professional to help you find that answer.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because it gets you to think about how, at your core, how you identify yourself, not what because unfortunately, a lot of it is what you want others outside of your influence to see in you. You
Very much
know,
so.
you want people to think, oh, you're a good mother, a good father, and a good spouse, and supportive, and a shoulder to cry on, and an ear to
Yeah.
listen, and all this stuff, which it benefits them, but not necessarily yourself. And it's if you get into that, then you are on autopilot, because you're becoming what everyone else needs you to be, and it has nothing to do with how you want to and how you truly view yourself. And
Yeah.
I mean, you asked that question, and I was like, on an island by myself, first and foremost, I'm a fisherman. So, but just as an aside, but it's a great question to ask, and it's just all about self discovery, and it doesn't matter how old you are. It's I've said this before, but it doesn't. I don't care how old you are, 35, 45, 55, 65. One of the greatest things that this world offers to absolutely everyone is you do not need permission at any age to retool yourself
No,
and
not
to
at all.
reinvent yourself and
And if
grow out of, like you said, I'm a mother, I'm a spouse, I'm this. You don't need anyone's permission to go, no, that's how you look at it, but I'm a reader, I'm smart, I'm funny, I love hanging out with friends, and I'm extroverted and all this other stuff, because that's how you identify yourself. And the next step is then making sure that your behaviors echo what you see in yourself, and maybe it's something that you want to get to. Like, that's my goal. Like, it's, this overarching, like, part of my best life is being X, Y, and Z or whatever. Great. Let's come up with a plan to get you to that level, and so that you can identify that and people do see that stuff in you.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, about autopilot, you guys, it's kind of hard. So let me demonstrate what it is. Let me define, kind of like give you an idea. If you know, how do you know you're on autopilot? Um, when you're driving and you get to the place, but you don't remember getting there, you're on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel like you're living the same day over and over and over again, you're on autopilot. If you find yourself worrying about what people will think before how you feel, you're a people pleaser and you're on autopilot. And in fact, this really surprised me in my healing too. Notice I didn't say, when I defined myself, that I was manipulative, but that's what people pleasing is. People pleasing is manipulating others' view of yourself, because somewhere in you, you think if they know the real me, they'd leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's actually a manipulation. It's not done in malice, it's done to keep you safe, but it's really not keeping you safe. It's actually keeping you stuck and smushed down.
Well, in the definition of energy giving versus energy taking, a lot of people look at, like, people pleasing as energy giving, and it's actually the complete opposite. It sucks the energy right out of you,
Right? Yeah.
because you're always looking outside to make others happy, which is then taking your own energy out because you're not making yourself happy.
Yeah.
So,
I did that in droves and droves and droves. And in the end, it still didn't save my marriage. It still didn't save my brother. It still didn't save my relationship with my parents. After my brother died, about a year after he died, my parents and I became estranged because I decided I wanted to be different. I decided I wanted to set boundaries, and my parents never sought counseling after my brother died. They never got into grief support. They never saw a therapist. And still to this day, 7 years later, they haven't spoken to anybody professionally about his death. And I can't imagine what that's done on the inside to them. So there were actually 2 years that I didn't speak to them, because what I realized was our relationship was toxic. And I think that's another big fallacy that we tell ourselves is, oh, family's everything. No, chosen family might be everything, but you are everything first. And if just because somebody has a label of sister, brother, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, doesn't mean that they're healthy for you. And that it was a really big hurdle for me to overcome as well. Definitely.
Yeah, no, that's very true. So, States, I'm going to give you the opportunity just to let us know how everyone can get in touch with you. So, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So a few short minutes coaching.com, as you can see on the screen. If you're listening to it, it's a few short minutes, plural, coaching.com. I'm also on IG, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Stacey Short. I'm in a red jumpsuit, and you probably can't see it, but my hair is blue in that color. It's pink right now. And on my website, if this resonated with you, ladies, if you're hearing any part of your story, when my story today, go to a few short minutes coaching.com. On there, I have this step-by-step journey of self-love, and it's got a 30-day self-love guide. And it's a thing every day to do that maybe you just do differently today than you did yesterday, right? We were just talking about that. Go download that. I don't sell your information. I don't spam you. That's miserable. I ain't got the time anyway. And if you want to talk to me, go ahead and book a call. Also on there, I am recently a published author. The book is called Self-Love Project, and there's a little book button, and you can get it on Amazon, on Kindle for 99 cents, or you can email me if you'd like a physical copy. You don't have to live frustrated and feeling taken advantage of and exhausted and mad at life or mad at yourself. You don't have to live that way, my friends. There are ways out for sure. And I can help you, and Todd can help you. What we can't do is send that email, make that phone call, reach out. But aren't you tired? Aren't you tired of living the same day over and over again? Our time here is so short.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want 85 years of the same day, or do you want difference? Because we can help you do that.
Yeah, that's very true. And the same goes for us here, guys. Just go to go.project9life.com. You'll watch a video, give us some quick information. We don't spam. I'm not going to do anything besides just, if you get through that and you want to book a call, it's a complimentary phone call. I just want to know kind of where you're at, what you want, and how we can help you get there. Most it's going to cost you is 30 minutes of your day. It is worthwhile just to get a different perspective on it. And I'll give you for free the 4 basic things that you need to do before you even start on the program. If you decide to join in, there's 4 things that you really need to digest that will set you up for success, not just with this program, but for the rest of your life. And then also go to YouTube at Project 9 Life, subscribe to the channel. You'll be able to see this episode and all prior episodes there. And so you can they're at your leisure, obviously. If you really like it, you can watch it multiple times. So, but yeah, so, something that kind of caught me, like with, obviously, like we had talked before about the few short minutes and how, you can you can look at it like minute to minute, like where were you at a minute ago, stuff like that. So one of the things that I've adopted and I talk about openly is it's not my program. I didn't come up with this. I can't remember who did, but it's basically it takes 10 minutes a day. I just call it my 5 and 5 plan. And it's the last 5 minutes of your day before you go to sleep and the first 5 minutes when you wake up. Instead of, watching the last 5 minutes of a show or waking up and scrolling away on this and seeing what the day is going to have in store for you, take those 2 opportunities, last before you go to bed, when you wake up, and just think of everything in your life that's going right and things that you're thankful for. You got kids, you've got, and they're happy and healthy, or they're in college, or they're getting good grades in school, or you love your spouse and you can't believe how lucky you are. But think of things that are in your life that are going right. Because I promise you, as bad of days as you've had in your just last couple weeks or whatever, that list is a lot longer of things that are going right than what actually is not going right. And I promise you, if you do this for a week, you are going to be in such a better spot during the day, such a better mindset, such just better thoughts going through your head, because you're changing from a negative outlook to a positive outlook. You're not
That
looking,
actually rewires your brain. It
yeah.
actually rewires your brain, truly, doing
Mhm.
things like that.
Yeah, because you stop looking for, okay, this is coming up and here's all the things that could go wrong with it. You start looking at, okay, this is coming up. This is how this is going to go right. And it's the same thing. If you're sitting there and you're like, I don't know if I want to go into a coaching program because of X, Y, and Z. If you're unhappy and you're on autopilot, you've got 2 choices. You can either look at it and start popping holes in it. The detriment there is you go right back to the life that you said you weren't happy. Instead of looking at it and saying, what if I do this and it goes right and it works? What am I going to get? Well, you're going to get a lot closer to that, what you defined as your best life, and you're going to start making that progress.
Sure.
So that's your choice. You can either live your status quo and your autopilot,
Yeah, you can.
Or you can choose to make a change and level up your life and what you're getting out of it, and what you're, start crossing stuff off of your bucket list or your vision board or your whatever, and cross stuff off instead of just crossing out the year.
Yeah, I think a big misconception on vision boards and manifestation and all that stuff is like it just comes to you. No, action is always a part of manifesting. And those that do really know about manifesting will tell you you have to take, intentional action towards that thing that you want to manifest. And one of the first things that you should do is get out of autopilot. Wake the F up. Wake up. This is it, friends. You only have now. Tomorrow's not promised. So do you want to continue to live the pattern that made you miserable? Or do you want to try something that's scary, but maybe it wakes you up and you're not miserable anymore? That's your choice. But I want you to be conscious about making that choice. And so right now, in this second, choose, but be honest about your choice. I'm going to choose to do something that's scary with support. I don't know what that looks like, but at least it's different than this. Or this is known, this is comfortable, no matter how miserable I am or how crazy life is. At least I know this, I'm going to stay right here. Okay, that's okay. But say it out loud. Make the conscious choice. Don't just continue your day like you didn't hear that.
Right.
That's how you wake up.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. You're absolutely right. Like, think about it and then say it out loud to yourself. Look in the mirror and say it out loud to yourself. I am perfectly happy with my life as it currently sits. And hey, I'll be the first to applaud you. If you can look honestly in the mirror and go, I'm living my best life,
Fantastic.
congratulations. Good for you. You made choices a while ago that are getting you to the stage now. But if you're not living your best life and you're unwilling to do anything about it, say it to yourself in the mirror and see how that, and then the next step is, as soon as you say that, how do you feel? Like, are you disappointed in yourself, or are you like contented with, well, I made a choice to, just keep living the same day over and over and over again. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
all right, Stacey, we've got 30 seconds left. So wrap us up and kick us out of here.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us. Project Nine Life, a few short minutes coaching. Guys, you don't have to continue to live the same day for 85 years. And you could be a better parent, spouse, friend, better self if you just employ the right people. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. I love you, and have a great day.
Absolutely. Guys, we enjoyed it. Hope you guys did too. And we will see everyone later at the next episode.
Thank you for having me.